Welcome back, everybody. This is 7 Minutes for Seniors. I am Chris with Modified Independence. This is Randy.
Hi.
Nagyvathy.
Navady. Close.
Nagyvathy. Okay,
Closer.
I had the Pittsburgh in there. Um, so if you haven't been paying attention, this is our second segment. We already did the first segment, so feel free to go back and check it out. So specifically, how does Home in Mind help seniors?
So, Home in Mind, we're offering occupational therapy in the home and on an outpatient basis. So it's not home health where we're
Mm-hmm.
coming in right after you. There's no um, hospitalization requirement. There's
Right.
no homebound requirement. We can come in and see you. Think outpatient clinic, but I'm coming to your environment, which I think is where OT really shines too, because we're really actually seeing how you're doing things and being able to make adjustments that way. Um, so usually during our assessments, we're looking at physical, cognitive, any psychosocial, the environment, and um, anybody else that lives in the home too, because somebody that is aging or has a disability, their caregivers may be there with them. And we don't want to make all of these changes or make recommendations on the way that they carry out their daily life without taking them in consideration too.
Mm-hmm.
So we do a lot of caregiver training and equipment training
Right.
and that sort of thing too.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Now, with Home in Mind OT, do you do the home assessments
Yes.
and taking measurements and
Yep.
everything like that?
Yep.
So then you're doing that from a functional standpoint. So you get a client and they need your help with something like that. What are you working on during that time that they're getting the equipment delivered or they're getting the work done or whatever?
Yeah. So depending on the needs, sometimes I am almost like a middleman or a project manager and kind of facilitating getting the equipment, having people come in and get things installed. I
Hmm.
have a good relationship with Nova Construction in St. Augustine, so they've been great to come out and help me with anything that I need to
Okay.
get installed. And then I'm coming back out and making sure that everything is put in properly or the way that we had agreed on,
Hmm.
and training people on it. Again, caregiver training. If there's a caregiver involved that needs to be like physically helping somebody to do things, kind of talking about body mechanics and ways to protect themselves during it too.
And you build mobile med B,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So is there a limit on visits or visit length or anything like that? Because you mentioned
Typically,
about home health. I did home
yes.
health for years and
Yeah.
it was not beneficial to go past about 45 minutes for a treatment session.
Right. So I'm in there about an hour.
Yeah.
Evaluations, I'd say I'm in there for about an hour, hour and a half.
Mhm.
Um, Again, like what your assessments are, if I'm seeing someone for just skilled OT services, that's when it's going to be about that hour, hour and a half.
Right.
When it comes to like measurements and planning, those are more in depth and oftentimes not deemed medically necessary. So then insurance isn't covering it and you're not bound by that.
Right.
So it kind of depends because I can see people privately too. And then you have more wiggle room.
Because insurance isn't going to pay you to talk to the contractor about where the
Right,
building's supposed to go.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's totally out of pocket and a different service. And I think it's a needed service
Oh
because
yeah.
I think sometimes when people have different health issues and other family members involved, it is so overwhelming to deal with all the
Mm.
different health aspects. So not just therapy, but like your appointments and the things that you want to do out in the community and medications. Like there's just so many moving parts that I think it's helpful that if that was something that was needed, just somebody that literally is just like being an advocate for you, saying, hey, like I know this is how you typically would do a shower, but this is how this person functions and this is what it would really benefit them if
Yeah.
we just did it this way, and kind of collaborating. It's like a huge production collaboration to make it like really work for that person.
That's cool. So you're making home health OT like I wish home health OT
Yeah.
was in the last few years that I was doing it. Because I was
Yeah.
doing that in the beginning,
Yeah.
right? But they just cut back so much. I mean, I remember I was talking to somebody and I was like, a PT actually with one of the agencies said that the patient didn't need OT.
Right.
But then I'm looking at the documentation and working on transfers, getting in and out of the shower and teaching the caregiver. And it's like we're literally letting these other therapies like
Mm-hmm.
pull what we do
Yeah.
away, you
Yeah.
know?
And I think there's something to be said about that too. I think OT scope is so broad and we look at so many different things that I don't even think it's fair for another profession to come in and say they need you or they don't need
Right.
you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different things. Like, I mean, we're talking coordination, vision, cognition, sensation. A way a person moves is in our scope.
Yeah.
And I don't think that one profession should be, first of all, nobody has the time to fully look at that person
Right.
and then not only do your job, but then also decide, do they need their occupational
Right.
therapy or not? And so OT really should be at the forefront of
Yeah.
this stuff too. We have a huge impact on people being able to be independent. And how are we preventing falls? Falls don't just happen just because of the way that we're moving or our balance.
Mhm.
There's so many different factors. And OTs are like the perfect person to be coming in and assessing
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. So speaking of the perfect person,
Yeah.
who is your ideal client? Phone rings.
Yeah.
Randy, my name is Mr. or Mrs. So and so. This is what I have going on. Who's your ideal client?
So the ideal client, older adults are big with falls and multiple different, health conditions that come with aging. If we weren't taking care of ourselves our whole life, and sometimes even just happens anyway. There's so many different things that are happening that are a surprise to people as we get older. Even younger people now are getting like these
Mm.
progressive chronic conditions. Um, Even people who are experiencing something that's like more traumatic and new, strokes, brain injuries. um, I'm getting a lot of calls about home assessments specifically for the home of people who have children with disabilities,
Mm.
and kind of working on thinking about how that kid is functioning now and what the family members are having to do to help them.
Yeah.
And then also thinking our family members are getting older, these kids are going to be getting bigger, and how are we going to make sure that what we do in the environment is going to sustain.
Mhm.
And so when it comes to environment, I guess I should back up. Because I'm looking at the environment and really how that person's moving, I'm not doing any physical rehab necessarily on them. And I'm kind of seeing people of any age
Mm.
or, situation. In regards to the mobile OT services, those ideal clients are my older adults, the neurological conditions, progressive conditions,
Yeah.
those type of things.
Yeah. And it's really quite beneficial. There's machinery already in place, right? Something befalls you, some fateful thing happens, you end up in the hospital, and then you go to rehab.
Right.
And then rehab typically is looking for the easy button to discharge because they've billed for the maximum number of days that they can get out of the
Right.
insurance. And then they're trying to discharge home with Med A, home health services, so that they don't have a copay,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle that with a copay? You have a copay for per visit, or how does that work?
I think it depends because right now I'm working with Med B, and usually people aren't really seeing that many copays and deductibles. I think it's case by case.
Right.
When I'm billing for if someone has like out of network benefits, then that's like kind of all over the place
Yeah.
too. So I think it just kind of depends.
So if you're going back to a person 4 times, do you have a
Mm-hmm.
copay for each separate visit?
No,
No.
no,
Is it so it's by episode?
by episode.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah,
Well, I think your timer just went
it
off,
did go
right?
on. Yeah.
That is our second segment of 7 Minutes for Seniors. I'm Chris.
I'm Randy.
There you go. Y'all have a good day, and we'll see you again tomorrow.